Welcome and thank you for watching this short bereavement event. My name is Martin Abrams and I lead the spiritual care team at the hospital. We recognise that those watching will be at very different stages of grief. Some may have been grieving for months or years, and others may have had a very recent bereavement. Wherever you are on the journey, we hope within this short recording there will be some support for you, be it from the words, readings and poems, or reflection on ways of remembering, or perhaps the realisation your grief is part of a natural process and journey. To give a bit of background, since 2014, usually on the first Sunday of November, we've been offering a gathered memorial and remembrance event. The COVID-19 pandemic meant we had to put this online. Although we've been able to offer a gathered event this year, we recognise not everybody feels able to attend or would want to attend, and there is value in a recording such as this. At the end, there are some links where other support can be found. All of us taking part today work with the bereaved in different ways. What we all recognise is there is no blueprint for the journey. It is individual and unique for each person. This means we should beware of people who say, "I know how you feel," for nobody can. All we can offer are signposts and hints, ideas and suggestions, observations and tips that we have seen help others. One of the quotes, often attributed to the late Queen Elizabeth II, is "Grief is the price we pay for love." Among the places it was said was when she was with families after 9/11 and after the death of her beloved husband Prince Philip. The saying comes from a writing of Dr. Colin Murray Parkes, who wrote, "The pain of grief is just as much part of life as the joy of love. It is perhaps the price we pay for love, the cost of commitment." Perhaps this is why grief can be so intense, overwhelming, frightening, prolonged, and fill people with uncertainty, fear, and a sense of hopelessness. The journey of grief has a definite beginning, but its destination and ending is much more uncertain. A reflection I found very helpful is Richard's story, who, following the stillbirth of his twins, sees grief as personal and a series of stepping stones. On the Baby Loss Awareness website, he writes, "I often think of grief as a river to cross. Since the stillbirth of my twins, I've been following my own stepping stones, seeing which ones can still support me and which ones are now slippery and treacherous. My stepping stones may be different from yours. What I can nimbly skip across with ease may be something that makes you slip or stumble. When supporting other bereaved parents, I always make it clear that what works for me may not work for you. The only way to find out what works is to try it for yourself. In doing so, you may find your own stepping stones, and in time, those stones may help someone else find their way. This is how we cross the river. What lies on the other side is not acceptance, but a place where we can live with our grief rather than fighting it or denying it."
Hello, my name is Jan Fraser and I'm the hospital chaplain. I'd like to take a minute to share part of a children's story with you. I don't know about you, but I find some children's stories can contain some profound truths. This one is called Badger's Parting Gifts by Susan Varley, and it was written to help children to understand loss and grief. Badger is loved by all of the woodland animals, and when he dies, the other animals feel overwhelmed by his loss. The animals all wondered what they would do now that he was gone. Badger had told them all not to be unhappy, but it was hard not to be. As spring drew near, the animals often visited each other and talked about the days when Badger was alive. Mole was good at using scissors, and he told them about the time Badger had taught him how to cut out a chain of moles from a piece of folded paper. Paper moles had littered the ground that day. Mole remembered the joy he'd felt when he'd finally succeeded in making a complete chain of moles with all paws joined. Frog was an excellent skater. He recalled how Badger had helped him take his first slippery steps on the ice. Badger had gently guided him across the ice until he had gained enough confidence to glide out on his own. Fox remembered how when he was a young cub, he could never knot his tie properly until Badger showed him how. Fox could now tie every knot ever invented, and some he'd made up himself. And of course, his own necktie was always perfectly knotted. Badger had given Mrs. Rabbit his special recipe for gingerbread and had shown her how to bake gingerbread rabbits. Mrs. Rabbit was well known throughout the countryside for her excellent cooking. As she talked about her first cooking lesson with Badger so long ago, she could almost smell the wonderful fragrance of gingerbread fresh from the oven. Each of the animals had a special memory of Badger, something he had taught them that they could now do extremely well. He'd given them each a parting gift to treasure always. And using these parting gifts, they would be able to help each other. As the last of the snow melted, so did the animals' sadness. And whenever Badger's name was mentioned, someone remembered another story that made them all smile. By sharing their memories of Badger and using the gifts he had taught them, the animals came to realise that although Badger isn't with them physically, he still lives on through his friends. I'm sure there have been times since you lost your loved one that you've recognised their influence in your daily life. And hopefully it's brought a smile to your face as you remember a special moment with them. This next poem is by Iris Heselden, called I Am There. It invites us to look for influences of our loved ones as we go about our daily lives. Look for me when the tide is high and the gulls are wheeling overhead, when the autumn wind sweeps the cloudy sky and one by one the leaves are shed. Look for me when the trees are bare and the stars are bright in the frosty sky, when the morning mist hangs on the air and shorter, darker days pass by. I am there, where the river flows and salmon leap to a silver moon, where the insects hum and the tall grass grows, and sunlight warms the afternoon. I am there in the busy street. I take your hand in the city square, in the marketplace where the people meet, in your quiet room. I am there. I am the love you cannot see, and all I ask is, look for me.
Hello, I'm Dr. Dominic Bray, an NHS clinical psychologist working in Southport and Formby. You may be bereaved of a person. You may be bereaved of the life you once had. The well-known Stages of Grief model was originally about people confronted with living with a long-term, unfixable condition. And with good reason, for this too is a loss. How can we then remember, and by doing so live and not just exist? Firstly, let us be aware that our recollections are not fixed. They change over time. When we are closest to the loss, we are most often wrapped up in the near past, which is generally when we've walked through our darkest time. So remember then to bring to mind the whole story, the cherished memories of maybe times long past. They are no less true than the bleakest ones. What words of encouragement would those lost loved ones have for you? What would your former self want to remind you about the gold you're made of? And if your memories are overwhelmed with grief or negative experiences that blot out any prospect of light, make sure to find someone you can trust who will simply listen, not judge or advise, unless of course that's what you'd really want. Henri Nouwen, in his book The Way of the Heart, has written beautifully about how hard and yet desperately important it is to be a compassionate listener who, uninvited, will neither judge nor attempt to fix. I hope you find such a person. Secondly, remember, if you possibly can, to look at your now. What, however minimally and in the smallest glimpses, gives your life meaning? For example, what do you mean to others around you, even if it's your beloved pet? And if you have a faith, as I have, to your God, it's easy to miss those glimpses, and yet so helpful when you find them and cherish them. Lastly, remember, if you can, to dare to hope. Just for today, just for the next hour, if that's all you can do. How did you even get this far? And what does it say about what life might yet hold for you? What would your beloved one, or the best version of you, want for you? For those who have lost cherished loved ones, this may yet be the best way we can honour their memory. In the old story, when Pandora's box was opened, all the evils of the world appeared. But the last thing to appear was hope.
Hello, my name is Elaine Diming, and I am the Assistant Director of Nursing Workforce. Part of my role is helping to provide bereavement support to families and carers of those who have recently died. We recognise that grief is individual, and no two people will feel the same when they have lost a loved one. We believe it is important to remember those who have died, and one way of doing this is to plant flowers in their memory. Here at Southport and Ormskirk, we offer seeded memory cards to all bereaved relatives, which can be planted in a garden and will grow into beautiful wildflowers. If this is something you would like, please contact us and we will be happy to send the memory card to you. Along with the seeds, there is a small verse which speaks of how memories can be happy ones, even in times of grief. I'd like to share that verse with you now. It's by Helen Lowry Marshall, and it's called Afterglow. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering down the way of happy times and laughing times, of bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun with happy memories that I leave when my life is done.
Hello, my name is Martin Garrity, and as well as working in the Trust in other roles, I'm a humanist chaplain. Humanists particularly value the one life that we have, and although we believe in the universe as a natural phenomenon rather than the act of a god, we recognise that everyone has spiritual needs, and at different times need to seek meaning in existence. And grief is an experience that crosses every belief and system of understanding. This poem by Rabindranath Tagore captures the impact of the loss of a loved one, but gives hope and perspective in the voice of the loved person we have lost. It's called Farewell, My Friends. It was beautiful as long as it lasted, the journey of my life. I have no regrets whatsoever save the pain I'll leave behind. Those dear hearts who love and care, and the strings pulling at the heart and soul. The strong arms that held me up when my own strength let me down. At every turning of my life, I came across good friends, friends who stood by me, even when the time raced me by. Farewell, farewell, my friends. I smile and bid you goodbye. No, shed no tears, for I need them not. All I need is your smile. If you feel sad, do think of me, for that's what I like. When you live in the hearts of those you love, remember then, you never die.
We are now coming to the end of our bereavement support event. We do hope you have found watching this helpful. Finding trusted people who can journey with you is so important, and there are many places and ways you can find support. We will put some links on the screen at the end of this recording. My final words come from that great book, Winnie the Pooh. A.A. Milne wrote a farewell scene so well, reflecting on what it is to be human. If ever there is a tomorrow when we're not together, there is something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing is, even if we're apart, I'll always be with you. We began today by suggesting that grief can be the natural product of love, care, and companionship. Although we may not always feel the strength, bravery, and smartness Milne suggests, what is true is our loved ones are never forgotten. In different ways, their memories are always with us. Thank you again for watching.